Good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. It's good to finally meet you. How's everything been coming along?
It's good. I would say a little stressful, but it's good. It's coming along now.
Sure, of course. So I read over your responses in the form. Thanks for sharing some background. It's good to get a sense of where you're at. You're currently in the high 140s, low 150s, right?
Yeah, I would say yeah, around there.
And you're looking to get top score 170,
I
175.
cross my fingers and I hope so. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. I'm curious to know because I know you're taking it this fall. What is your availability in terms of number of hours per week to study?
Well, I tried to be a morning person like before work, but it didn't go so well for me. So I usually finish work around 7. So I try to do like 8 to 11 or like sometimes 8 to 12, depending on like how many hours I can get or if I have early like morning shift to start or anything like that. So typically I try to do 7 days a week because sometimes I do miss a day and I'm not that consecutive with it. So I would say probably like 20, 25.
Okay, good. And when you're studying in the evening, what is your energy level like? Are you feeling fatigued or you're still feeling like you have a good amount of energy?
There are days where if it's a long day at my workplace where I've worked like 10 hours or so, then it's like I'm tired and like I will go through maybe like an hour of it and then I'll give up and I'll be like, okay, maybe tomorrow. But then there's days where I work only like 4 hours and then I have a lot more energy to like go through a lot more like content than I would on a regular day. So I feel like it just varies by day.
Okay, good. It sounds like you're moderating yourself accordingly. If folks are trying to do the full 8 to 12 when they're exhausted after a full day, of course, you're not going
Oh,
to get the full
I
benefit from
know.
it. Yeah.
My
So
brain can only handle so much at a time and it's just
yeah,
no.
good. Okay. So it sounds like you're doing what you can. Are there any particular challenges you're facing in your prep or any areas that you're looking for support?
I would say reading comprehension is probably my worst section. Like for sure. I usually average around like 9 to 10 right. And then like it hasn't improved, but I also haven't hit like part of your schedule. I haven't hit the reading comprehension part yet. I'm just finishing off the logic games. So I'm hoping to see a difference once I start like practicing more. But for now, I think I've improved on my logic games a lot more.
Okay, good to hear. In terms of reading comp, what's your strategy like currently?
I try like I can't focus on a passage for too long, especially when like the LSAT ones, they don't make a lot of sense to me. So I try to skim or I'll try to read it and then like I'll go sometimes I've tried starting with the question stems and then that way I know what I'm like expecting from the passage. So then I go back and then when I read it, I try to highlight stuff or to like make notes on the side. But like I usually mess up when it's like the author's point or I don't understand like the flow of the argument, like the conclusion, or if there's like which argument like depends on what. Like I usually mess that up quite a lot. So I always make mistakes there. I'll get like the first question, like what's the main passage about? I'll get that right. But then when it starts to like pinpoint certain points of the passage, that's what like I mess up on that.
Okay. When you say that you write notes to the side, do you mean on the scratch paper?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And what's the highlighting experience like for you? Do you find the highlighting to be useful and easy?
Yeah, it works. Like I feel like if there's some things that I know that stand out to me that it might be a question on, or if I read a question on some certain word, I'll highlight it and I'll highlight the sentence so that if I have to jump back, I know exactly where it is. But I find that the highlighting is a good technique for sure.
Okay. And when you read the questions first before getting into the passage, do you find that reading them first actually does help you know what to look for?
Yeah, a little bit. That way I'm not just going into the passage not knowing anything about what I'm going to be expecting after I've done like I've read the whole passage. That way while I'm reading it I can kind of like pinpoint what associates with like a certain question and what doesn't. So I do find that a little bit easier, but I find that sometimes that I'm going back, if I don't do that, I'm going back and forth and rereading the passage and I waste way more time then if I don't do the question stems first for sure.
Okay. Because you also said that the detail oriented question stems are the ones that give you more trouble, right?
Yeah.
So you're reading them first, then reading the passage, then coming back to actually solve those questions, but you're still
Yeah.
having trouble with those questions.
Yeah, I don't like I some especially like the science ones. I'm like I don't understand like the flow of the argument, and sometimes it doesn't make sense of like how the argument is presented to me. So when I have to go back and there's something like a question about an argument or about a conclusion, sometimes I can't spot exactly where it is. So that usually gives me trouble, and then I end up like just guessing it and moving on because I don't want to waste time on just one question, and maybe an easier one will come up. So I try to do that, and then I guess that messes me over in the long run, where I tend to get a lot of my questions wrong.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's perfectly natural. I mean, what was your major in college?
Well, I'm still in
You're
university. I'm
still
actually
college,
in my
okay.
fourth year. I'm doing law and business. It's a business management, and then I'm majoring in law. So it's like a lot of the legal aspects of business is what I study.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, a lot of pre-law students have majors like that, and science is typically less familiar, and so it's therefore more intimidating as a result.
Yeah,
So
for
I
sure.
get what you mean. I majored in poli sci, so I'm kind of in the same boat where the science ones, they're kind of intimidating. I don't really know what they're talking about. It's a little bit foreign to me and therefore kind of scary. So that's by design, of course. They make all the passages on topics that you typically don't have any prior familiarity with.
Oh, yeah, I guess
That's
that.
normal. Yeah.
Yeah, for
No,
sure.
so
It's
the
just,
reading comp questions, I mean, you're going to have always global ones like main idea, primary purpose, passage organization, things like that are global in nature, where they're always going to be pretty much the same. And if nothing else, you should be able to walk away from reading the passage knowing that. You should know the main idea after you read something. The
yeah, for
details
sure.
you may not remember, but the main idea, that's what you really want to take away. The detailed ones, they're typically going to require going back to the passage always, because they're nitty gritty on topics that, again, we don't have prior familiarity with.
Yeah,
It's even hard to get through the passage. So, and get the main idea, let alone the details. So going back is okay. I don't love the idea of reading questions first, then passage, then questions again, because the global ones are always going to be pretty much the same. The
yeah,
detail ones, you're going to need to go back almost all of the time. And then the inferential questions, the ones that require reading between the lines, things like what would the author be most likely to agree with? Or then you have the wacky ones that are kind of like parallel reasoning every now and then, or strengthen or weaken. Those are also going to require going back.
yeah,
So I'm actually not sure how much reading questions first helps. I have occasionally heard people recommend it, but the majority of people tend not to find it useful in the end when it comes down to balancing both accuracy and solving questions within the time constraint. So I would recommend experimenting with that in the form that you said that you're taking September, right?
yes,
Okay, so you've got some time. We're speaking now end of July. You've got a month and a half or so. You have some room to
yeah,
play around and see, maybe do a section or two question stems first, a section or two without. Really measure and see what ends up working out best.
yeah. I'll definitely give that a shot. I'm trying to make my way through like I chose the 2 month schedule. I was gonna choose 1 month, but then I was like, I still have like a little bit of time where if I was maybe able to hit like maybe week 1 and 2 in like 1 week, I could get through the whole thing. So I am on week 2 of like, or well, I'm ending week 1 of this 2 month schedule. And like I've definitely improved on my logic games. That's my favorite section. It makes the most sense to me out of all the other ones. I honestly hate reading comprehension. I'm not a big reader. I've always avoided reading books and everything. But I guess that also comes with law. Everybody tells me, hey, if you want to be a lawyer, you're gonna have to read. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it when I have to, but I guess now is the time.
Yeah. So I mean, there will be a lot of reading in law school, yes.
Yeah,
But luckily, I mean, that's reading comp's the only big section with that. The other sections are smaller, but it's not always the quantity, right? Like logical reasoning questions you've seen are very tightly worded.
oh, yeah, for sure.
So I was going to say, you could also adjust the schedule a bit. If you're on this 2 month timeline and reading comp, is an area of more trouble, maybe you want to speed through the logic games portion more, since you're already good on that as much as you enjoy it. Speed up on that, devote a bit less time there, and give more time to the reading comp that likely needs it much more.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's what probably I'm gonna do, since that's the one that I always tend to get like the worst on. I just can never go through it. I think I took the LSAT last year, And midway through my reading comprehension, I got the section twice. I had a mental, like, I broke down through the second one, and I literally guessed all of like the last like two passages. I guessed all the questions, and my proctor was like, "Are you okay?" Is like, you're flying through them, and I'm like, "Yeah, I just want to get it over with now." Like, I at that point I had given up, and I was like, "There's no way I'm making it through this."
All right, well, let's do what we can to avoid that this time around. I mean,
Yeah, no.
let's go in with a refined strategy. You've got a month and a half to figure it out. I'd say put games aside. You're pretty much good on those. Devote a lot more time to the reading comp. And how's logical reasoning for you, by the way?
Logical reasoning is in between. There are times where I could do like amazing and like I'll be off by like a few questions, and then there's times where it'll be the complete opposite. So I haven't had like a steady score where I could see that I'm like improving. I haven't gotten a strategy down like I have for the logic games, where I kind of just go into a logic reasoning and then I just kind of answer the questions how I see fit. Like, I don't have an actual strategy fit for the different question stems that they have. So I'm trying to work on that as well as reading comprehension. But I would say I'm like a little bit better at reasoning than I am at reading comprehension for sure. So it's just both of those. But I definitely think reading comprehension requires a lot more time from like me.
Okay. Yeah, I think so too. So let's say put games aside, focus on reading comp, do the reading comp foundational material in the course, and then go into the full length class recordings on reading comp. You'll see different strategies that I use to break down and analyze passages, question solving strategies as well. There are classes where I spent an entire hour just going over a passage, not even doing the questions. So there's a lot we can pull out of the passage structurally to get away from the intimidating topics down to looking at how the authors actually articulated their opinions, their viewpoints, and their reasoning. So I want you to look at those. And then logical reasoning, of course, we definitely want you to have strategies for all the different question types. I've got those in the course too.
Okay, cool. I will definitely give it. I've only been just following it, but I guess if that requires more, I could just skip on like ahead and then come back and like, if I have more time at the end of it to work through everything else. But when if it's a 2-month scale, will I basically have 6 weeks? When would you throw in like time to test?
Early. I mean, I would spend 2 months is a short timeline for the LSAT as a whole, right?
Yeah,
but this is not your first rodeo. You've been through this before. So you're not starting from scratch. I would say if games is already your strongest, let's look at where you can pick up points. More points, the lower hanging fruit is going to be the reading comp and the reasoning. So I'd say spend the next week or so primarily reading comp with a little bit of reasoning and a tiny bit of games. And then the following week, based on where you're at, either go 50-50 reasoning, reading comp, or stick with more reading comp, again, doing a tiny bit of games. And then the final 4 weeks, I would say ideally focus more on full-length timed exams and then review. Cool. And the review will naturally be more in your weak areas. So you will still get the chance to do a bit more on the reading comp and reasoning.
Okay. And do you like recommend reviewing even the questions you get right, or is it just focusing on the stuff that you just get wrong?
I would focus on the questions you get wrong and then the ones that you have difficulty with where you're not 100% sure. Because if they were a guess, it could have just easily gone the other way. But unfortunately, with limited time, you can't review all the questions in an exam. So I'd say just focus on the ones you get wrong and the ones you're unsure of.
Okay, cool. I will definitely give that a shot. I did not expect that much going into it. I was like, cool, the LSAT, like, it shouldn't be that difficult, but it requires a lot more focus from me than I anticipate. I'm at work a lot. I work over 40 hours a week, and it tends to get a lot balancing both things. And I am in my 4th year now going, so I do have to apply for law schools like this coming November. So this is, I guess, the last LSAT I can take is the January one, but I really do not want to push it that far. I'm hoping the last one I'll have to take maybe is November, and then like that'll be it. But crossing my fingers that I'm sure September, hopefully that one goes fine, but like I will probably to the October and November one just to be safe.
Yeah, well, you've got time. I mean, you could take it. There's so many LSATs nearly every month. You're starting early. It's good that we're talking now in July. You still got 2, 3, 4, 5 months. You could take it easily, even 6, and still apply this cycle totally fine.
Yeah, for sure. I will. I think that was like majority of my questions.
Great. Well, if anything else comes up, just shoot me an email. I'm happy to help, and it was great to meet you.
You as well. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Have a good one. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and take care.